Anyway, let's move on, and I don't know, let's talk about football. So why not? I'm not going to go too fast through this. I do want to share, I am talking about deacons, and I want to start with this, and kind of the main thing we're talking about is the idea of role, responsibility, and expectation, okay? So that's the key words you're going to hear over and over again as we continue in this topic, role, responsibility, and expectation. So now, let me mention this. Sometimes when I create something on my computer and I put it on the computer back there, it messes up the font. You're going to notice that the quarterback is not really behind the center right there. He might be getting a snap from the left guard, okay? That's not by design. I think the computer back there changed my font and spacing a little bit. So I want you to know I can draw kind of a play. I'm not like an expert, but I know better than that. Unless that's the running back and the quarterback's a little deeper. Anyway, the point is this. Everybody on the football team, right? You go out there and they line up for a play. Now, the overall goal is to win football games. We know that the overall goal in the game is to score points. If you're on offense, you're on defense, you want to allow no points. But just break it down to one play. Just one play. You got 11 guys on each side, and they go out there and they line up. And the point is everybody must know the play, but you also have to know what you're doing in that play. I'll take a receiver, for example. You take a receiver, and a receiver, his role, and when you talk about the role, that's your position. Your quarterback, center, guard, receiver, running back. If you're on defense, that's your role. What is your responsibility? When we're talking about responsibility, that's your task, the duty, the thing that you have to do, okay? You're going to have several responsibilities, and that's going to come with your role. You're probably chosen for a role because you have some sort of ability or interest that makes you the right person for that role. And so you're given some responsibilities. If you're a receiver, your responsibilities are things like catching footballs, seems obvious, running good routes. Sometimes you have to block. Sometimes you run a route to take someone away from the play. Okay, and so all those things are the responsibilities that you have, and that could change based on what the play is. Then you have the expectation. The expectation, simply put, is the desired outcome. What is the desired outcome? The funny thing about a football play, the desired outcome is not always a touchdown. There are plays designed to get 2 or 3 or 4 yards, and that's it. It's just a quick first down if you need it, just to keep the drive going. Some are designed to get large chunks of yards and maybe get into the end zone, things like that. But the point is everyone has a role. Within that role, you have responsibilities. And if you achieve the responsibilities, that helps us meet the expectation, get the desired outcome. If that receiver, if it's a running play, again, their responsibility is to take somebody away from the play so that the running back can get 2 or 3 or 4 yards or even more. And so the point of all of that is that the burden of leadership, and that's something we'll talk about as we go through this, is that everyone must know their role, their responsibility, and the expectation. What is the desired outcome? Role, responsibility, expectation. I'll give you one more example outside of sports. I also thought about camp. If you are a counselor at camp and you're in the cabin with 14 young people, Donna's over there having flashbacks. And so, because she had the youngest ones for several years in a row. I feel so bad every year for Donna at camp. By Friday, I'm like, I'm sorry. She's like, for what? I said, just for the week. I'm sorry. But you take on that role of a camp counselor. So, okay, you got responsibilities and expectations. And you can do this backwards, like begin with the end in mind. What's our expectation? Well, the expectation is, one, all the campers are delivered safely back to their parents on Friday. Expectation. Another one is that they have been spiritually fed, spiritually uplifted. They've learned something. Another expectation is they've made some new friends during the week. Another expectation is that, well, they had fun. We would like for you to have fun at camp as well. And so you take all that, you put it together, and that's a pretty good camp week. So as that counselor, if that's the expectations, what is the responsibility? Well, one of the things, and if you've been a camp counselor at my week, you've heard me say, be where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be there, doing what you're supposed to be doing. If you do that, then the kids are going to have fun. They're going to learn Bible, right? They're going to be in their Bible classes. They're going to be in chapel. They're going to be at their meals, so they're going to be fed, so they're going to be safe, and they're going to be fed, and they're going to be healthy by the end of the week. And those are the responsibilities that lead to accomplishing those expectations in the role of a counselor at camp. And so with that in mind, I want to go to Matthew chapter 25, and we're going to take the story of the parable of the talents. I want to break that down and talk about that in relation to this idea of role, responsibility, and expectation. And let's read through that real quick, and then we'll come back and take a look at a few of those things and how those relate. And then I promise we'll talk about deacons there toward the end. Matthew 25, beginning in verse 14, it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted them to his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, each according to his ability, then went away. He who had received 5 talents went at once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. So also he who had 2 talents made the 2 talents more. And he who had received the 1 went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money. Now, after a long time, the master of those servants came, and he settled accounts with them. Verse 20. And he had received the 5 talents, came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered me 5 talents here, and I made 5 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. And he said and he who also had the 2 talents came forward, saying, Master, you delivered me 2 talents here. I have made 2 talents more. His master said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. He who had received the 1 talent came forward, saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here, have what is yours. The master answered him, You wicked and slothful servant, you knew I reap where I have not sown, and gather where I have not scattered no seed. Then you ought to have invested the money with the bankers. At my coming, you have received what was my own with interest. All right, so let's look at that again in that context of role, responsibility, and expectation. First thing I want to look at is beyond that or above that. Before that, the master did what? He gave them trust. He entrusted his servants with a portion of his property. And that property is called a talent, a denomination of money of some sort, but to say it was the belongings of the master, and he has entrusted it with them. And you talk about leadership, you really talk about trust. Again, that burden of leadership is to be able to trust those that you give responsibility to. Trust those who are working for you or working with you. And when you give them that role, responsibility, and expectations, you have to know them well enough. When you take someone and you find that they have interest in something, they have a good ability or a talent for that, and there's an opportunity to use that talent and that interest, that's really where you find excellence. That's where you find enthusiasm, and that's where you find success. And trust is probably the biggest gift or the greatest gift you can give someone. And the trust that this master had, he trusted these. So there's history of this master and these servants so that he knows each one of them. And he gives them not only a portion of his property and the responsibilities that go along with that, but while he goes away. They have it unsupervised. It's up to you. So he knows these servants. He knows their limitations. He knows what they're good at. He knows what they're bad at, their weaknesses, everything about them. And he trusts them with part of his property. Next phrase I want to look at there is according to his ability. According to his ability, the distribution of talents was based on the ability of the servant. And this is a fair and right and equitable way. It was a just way for the master to divide his property among these servants. It goes back again to that burden of leadership, knowing the people who you work with, knowing the people who work for you, members of your team. In this case, again, the master knows these servants and he knows them very well. It's quite evident. He knows their strengths and weaknesses, limitations, capabilities. He knew that the 1 talent man could not bear the responsibility of 5 talents. And he knew that the 5 talent man would almost be insulted by only giving him 1 talent. He had a lot more capability than that. And so in the same way, he understands all of these things, and because of the role of the servant, when he's giving them the responsibility and the expectation, he knows exactly what to give each one according to his ability. When I think through that as far as an application to us, no one comes to the kingdom of God empty-handed. God has given every Christian the opportunity to do good works, to do service, but he's also given us the necessary talent, the necessary capability, the necessary skills, the means by which to carry out those opportunities. He's entrusted us with those things. We read about that in Romans chapter 12, the gifts that God has given the church and how we bring each a unique gift. It's almost like a fingerprint. We each have a unique gift that we bring that helps make up the body of Christ. And it's not about having more or less or the greatest or the least, but everyone made in the image of God possesses a gift or a talent that we use to serve in his kingdom. And God has given to us according to our ability. So knowing the role of the servant as the manager in the master's house, manager of some portion of his property, they're serving in this position. As you read through this, I think we can conclude and kind of put together what was the responsibility and the expectation of each of these servants. Take a look at that. And when you look at the responses that were given to the servants, after he had gone on his journey and he came back, and the 5 gave 5 more, the 2 gave 2 more, but the 1 had buried his talent. When we look at these responses from the master, what you find is what their expectations and responsibilities were. He says, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a little. I see, I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master." That was to the 2 successful servants. To the 1, he says, "I reap where I have not sown, gather where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have invested the money to the bankers. And at my coming I would have received what was mine, but with interest." So kind of backing into it again, we can look at the expectations and then figure out what their responsibilities were. The responsibilities are a little harder to figure out here. They're not really listed. We don't really know. But the expectation is what? The expectation was that they were to give some return to the master, some increase or some improvement upon the portion of the property that they were given. And so if they did their work successfully, they would accomplish the responsibility and they would meet that expectation. So knowing that, then, he comes back again. "You have done well because you gave me the return I was looking for. Here, you did not do well because you gave me no return." And in fact, he says, "Look, you could have at least put it in the bank. You could have at least, a 6-month CD, you're going to get 4.5%, right? At least bring me something from what I gave you. Do something with it." That was the expectation. So what were the responsibilities? What were the tasks that they should be doing? Well, we know that the 5-talent man, it says he went and traded. He went and did business. He did some sort of business or trade, some type of commerce or transaction where he was able to increase that property and give back to his master. Same with the 2-talent man. And so that was their expectation. Some type of return, taking care of the property that you were given, giving it back with an increase, and the responsibility they had was to find some way, some transaction, some investment, some bank even, to fulfill those expectations. Obviously, the 5-talent, 2-talent man were successful with that. The 1-talent man was not, and he was punished. Now, shifting gears from that, I think that helps us flesh out this idea pretty well of role, responsibility, and expectation. I want to apply that to our deacons. And I'll tell you what, the example I put down, and is he here? Tyler Watts. He dipped out on us today because he must have known this was coming. Fellow miserable Auburn fan, are you here, Tyler? You're not in the right seat. Listen, you guys have assigned seats. There's Tyler. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. We won yesterday, so obviously we're going to come out and show our face today. So Tyler Watts is a good example. His role at this church is a deacon, and his role as a deacon is he is over our adult education program. So with that role, what are the responsibilities and the expectations? Responsibility, he's going to give us a variety of class offerings. This is going to be based on relevance, what's going on in the world, interest of the congregation, needs of the congregation. What are we looking at? What do we need to study? What do we need to learn as a congregation? He's going to give us good teachers, right? He's going to find people who are qualified. You know what qualifies you to teach a Bible class? I'll teach a Bible class. That's about it. We need you, okay? And if you think you can't do it, we're going to help you learn how. We love to help people learn how to stand and do a Bible class, and that's one of his jobs. He's going to find teachers. I think next week starts a new quarter, and we got 4 classes, 4 adult offerings next quarter with new teachers, and I'll let him tell you all about that. He is to schedule that. Schedule that out so that we know what's coming up next quarter and even several quarters in the future. The responsibilities. What are the expectations? The expectations, well, 1, to increase participation. We want everybody to stay for Bible class, and we'd love everybody to be here on Wednesday if you're able. I know work schedules and school schedules are tough. But if we provide those good classes and interesting classes and effective classes that challenge us and teach us, then people are going to want to be a part of that. And so another expectation is to be a biblically literate church. We're going to teach good things and increase our Bible knowledge. We're going to understand and love Scripture. Fellowship is another expectation. We fellowship around the Word of God. And so you can take a look at that. As a deacon in that role, the responsibilities and the expectations are provided as well. Our elders have that burden of leadership, the burden of leadership to find men to fill those roles, find men who have a specific interest or a specific talent, see an opportunity or a need the church has, and they have the enthusiasm, the interest to do those things and to fulfill that need. And so they do that as our leaders. Now, about deacons, I'll just say a few things. I'll encourage you to go to 1 Timothy chapter 3, I believe, beginning in verse 8, is the qualifications of deacons. Qualifications of deacons. You read through that and you say, well, this is what a man should look like to be able to be in that role. This is the first thing. What qualifies them? Burden of leadership on the elders is to make sure that the men they choose and the men we choose as a congregation fit those qualifications. They meet every single one of those. Along with that, about deacons. Deacons, it's one of the biblically authorized leadership or positions of governance in the church. Now, when you look around at churches, you look at denominations, the Catholic Church, many others, you're going to see man-made ideas in the structure of their leadership and even the titles that they hold. What the Bible teaches is that Jesus and Jesus alone is the head of the church. In the first century, after that, were the apostles. The apostles were there to establish the church, establish that foundation. They had the gift of prophecy and the gift of being able to do miraculous things, healing people, things like that, speaking in other languages when they needed to. They were able to give that gift to others. Others could not pass that on. It died out with that first century group. But aside from Jesus, it was the apostles. And then we read as early as Acts chapter 13 that elders were being named in churches, shepherds. And the shepherds took that place as the church grew and the church continued going forward. And then we read in 1 Timothy 3 about deacons in Philippians 1, verse 1, when Paul greets the Philippian church, he says also the overseers and the deacons. And so it's a biblically authorized position of leadership in the church. Another thing about deacons, and this is always interesting, is the word diakonos is the Greek word. If you have an interlinear Bible or a website, I've got a great website I use, it shows you the original language aligned with the English, how we got the words we got when we read the Bible, why they chose specific things. And diakonos is a good example because it can either be translated as deacon, the position in the church, or servant. And so be careful with that because context matters. What are we talking about? Who are we talking about? What's going on in that passage to tell me as a translator that diakonos means deacon, leader in the church, or servant, which could apply to anyone in the church. And the thing about that word too, it comes from a couple different words, kind of the origin of it. And I don't study Greek. I've never had a Greek class. I don't know how to read. And so I read this. These words come together, and the image of diakonos and what that means is it means, let's see, make sure I say, to kick up dust, as in running an errand. And that's something. To kick up dust, as in running an errand. That means movement, right? Not just movement, not just busyness to be busy, but movement with a purpose. And so you think about a deacon or a servant, it's someone who is working, someone who's busy, someone who's serving, someone is running after something for a goal and for a purpose. Deacon meaning servant, we first see they're not called deacons in Acts chapter 6, but it's a group of men who were chosen to help feed these widows who were being ignored in the early church. And because of that, they're called upon and they're chosen, 7 men, not named deacons there, but you can see that it lays out the pattern of a deacon and what who they are, what they're chosen for, and what they're doing. They are serving those in the church who have need. And you can see that throughout the ages has been the job of the deacon within the church. We're blessed in this congregation with elders that have a great vision of this church. They see needs when we have them. We're also blessed with men who have the talents and the desire to serve in these roles. And it truly is exciting. It's an exciting thing to look at that and know that, one, we're structuring the church the way the church should be structured, and we're finding men to fill those roles and meet the needs of this congregation. And I say all that to tell you this: at the end of our service, the elders are going to come forward today. They're going to present to you 3 names of 3 men who are now being chosen to fulfill some of those roles in this church, to fulfill some of the needs. Men who have agreed to take on the role and the responsibility and the expectations. Men that our elders, through their wisdom and their knowledge and their work, have decided these men are qualified for this position. And so this is an exciting time. It's an exciting day. And I won't read it now. I'm very short on time. 1 Timothy 3, 8 through 13, those qualifications, what it takes to be qualified to fulfill that role. Well, I encourage you this week, go read that. 1 Timothy chapter 3. In fact, start at the beginning and read the qualifications for elder. And as you read the qualifications of elder and qualifications for a deacon, those who are leading our congregation, you're going to think about these guys who are doing those jobs. So what I want you to think about is, when you read through that, think about that every single one of us should meet those qualifications. Every single one of us should read that through and see that this is an example of an active and fruitful Christian leading and serving in God's church. That's what we're all aspiring to do. So they're going to present that later on toward the end of our service, and I pray that you will accept that, be prayerful about it, and be thankful for the leadership that we have as they fulfill those roles, responsibilities, and those expectations. This morning I want to jump back. I want to tell you once again, if you have not put Christ on in baptism, if you are not a Christian, don't let your head hit the pillow tonight without being right with God. If you are a Christian, same thing applies. Use this time to come forth with your brothers and sisters. You know, just like last night, we say, hey, we don't care if it's 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. I don't care if it's 10:30, in the afternoon. We'll make it to Super Chicks at some point today, right? Make that need known. If it's a need, if you're a Christian, and if it's not salvation, if it's just a need you have, emotional, physical, spiritual need, make that known. But if you want to put Christ on in baptism as well, please make that known. Come forward as we stand and sing together.